everyone, you're welcome once again to Master Lectures. And in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about something very interesting in the world of biology, and that is transport in man, or some people will say circulatory system in man, or you can also target transport system in man, whichever. Right? So we are going to be looking at transport in man. Now, when we are talking about transport in man, we will take our minds to the circulatory system, alright? And when we are talking about the circulatory system, we are talking about a group of organs, alright, that helps to circulate materials around the body. So the circulation of materials around the body is still the same thing as transportation. Are we together? Alright. Now, when we are talking about transport in man, we have three key areas we're going to focus on. First, we'll focus on the blood, and then we'll talk about the heart, and lastly, we'll talk about the blood vessels. Okay, so we are going to focus first on the blood, then we move to the heart, and then we take our mind towards the blood vessels. But for today's lectures, we are going to talk about the blood. Today is all about the blood. Alright, so now let's look at the blood. Now, what is the blood? The blood is a mixture. Alright, in chemistry, you know what a mixture is? Alright, a mixture is a combination of two or more substances that are physically joined together. So the blood is a mixture. It's a mixture of different things, precisely a mixture of blood cells and the liquid portion, which is the plasma. But when it comes to biology, that is not the accurate way of defining the blood. So we define the blood accurately as a fluid tissue. Okay, the blood is a fluid connective tissue. The blood is what? A fluid connecting tissue. Alright? A fluid connective tissue. Okay? So please take note, if they ask you what level of organization is the human blood found in, what will you say? Is it tissue? That is why it is here. Alright? Stated there, tissue, a connective tissue. So the human blood is a connective tissue. Alright? So the blood is a tissue. Now, the blood, you know I told you that the blood is a mixture. Now the blood is made up of 45% blood cells and 55% plasma. The 45% blood cells, we have three types of blood cells. We have the red blood cells, we have the white blood cells, and lastly we have what? The platelets. So these are the cells, blood cells we have. We have the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and then we have what? The platelets. Now, for the plasma, the plasma of the blood is divided into a portion that is made up of 90% water and another area that consists of 10% dissolved nutrients. 10% what? Dissolved nutrients. Alright, so we're going to take things gradually. So first and foremost, we'll talk about the blood cells. We're going to start with the blood cells. Precisely, we'll begin with what? The red blood cells. The red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells, pay attention. Before I even go into the red blood cells, before I start talking about the red blood cell more often, now I want to say something. Blood cells generally, the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets, blood cells are produced from the bone marrow. Alright, please take note of that. Blood cells are produced, okay, either you say from or in the bone marrow. So blood cells are produced from the bone marrow through a process called hematopoiesis. Okay, so blood cells are produced from the bone marrow through the process of hematopoiesis. Alright, so that is it. Formation of red blood cells in the bone marrow is done by the process hematopoiesis, is by that process. White blood cells and platelets through the same process, hematopoiesis. Are we together? Now, let's enter into the red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. Okay, the red blood cells are also known as what? Erythrocytes. So the red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. So you can now say the formation of red blood cells in the bone marrow, we will now call it what? Erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis. Alright. Now, second point you need to know about the red blood cells. The red blood cells are the most numerous. They are the most numerous blood cells. Alright, that's one fact. Another thing you need to know about the red blood cells. The red blood cells are the most numerous blood cells. Then number 3, what about the red blood cells? Now, the red blood cells, they are biconcave in shape. Or you see, they have donut shape. Alright, like a donut. If you know a donut, that snack that most people love eating. Alright, so it has something like this. Okay, so you can also say that the red blood cell has a disc shape. Alright, so this is the third point you need to know about the red blood cells. Now the fourth point that you need to know about the red blood cell is that the red blood cell, a mature red blood cell, lacks nucleus, and hence it is called a red blood corpuscles. Alright, so a mature red blood cell lacks what? Nucleus, and hence we call it what? A red blood corpuscles. Alright, don't call it red blood cells anymore, because now what actually makes them to be a cell, they've lost it. Alright, which is the nucleus, one of the essential components. So when a red blood cell is produced, it has nucleus, but once it gains maturity, it automatically loses its nucleus. Alright, so please take note of that. Then another fact again about the red blood cell that you must know is that the red blood cells, they live for 120 days. Are we together now? So the red blood cells, they have a lifespan. Alright, their lifespan is what? 120 days. That is approximately 4 months. So the red blood cells has a lifespan of 120 days, aka 4 months. Are we together? Now, another fact again about the red blood cell that you must also know is that the red blood cells contains a pigment called hemoglobin. Alright, now the red blood cells contain a very important pigment called what? Hemoglobin. Now, what is the role of this hemoglobin? Hemoglobin, two things you need to take note of. Hemoglobin is responsible for the reddish color of the red blood cell. So please take note. Hemoglobin, this guy, is responsible for the red color of the red blood cells, right? So hemoglobin is responsible for the red color of the red blood cell. This is the reason why. Do you know, have you ever asked yourself why the human blood is red? The human blood is red because, remember, hemoglobin is responsible for what? The red color of what? Red blood cells. Now take your mind back to number 2, right? The second point, it says the red blood cells are the most numerous blood cells. So because red blood cells are very many and they are red, so that is why they now give the entire blood that red color. So please take note, the red color of the blood is due to the abundant amount of red blood cells, and the red color of the red blood cells is due to the presence of what? Hemoglobin in the red blood cells. Are we together? Now, the role of hemoglobin in the red blood cells is that hemoglobin helps to bind oxygen to red blood cells. Okay, so hemoglobin, the role of hemoglobin is that hemoglobin helps to what? Bind oxygen to red blood cells. So when hemoglobin forms a bond reaction with oxygen, that's the name of that oxygen hemoglobin complex. When oxygen combines with hemoglobin, it forms a complex known as oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. So this oxyhemoglobin now, oxyhemoglobin is hemoglobin carrying oxygen. Hemoglobin has been binded to oxygen. So what happens is that the red blood cell, as the red blood cell moves, it transports what? Oxygen. So the sole purpose, this only function of the red blood cell is to transport oxygen. The red blood cell is able to transport oxygen because the red blood cell contains hemoglobin, and hemoglobin has the ability to bind to oxygen molecule. So the red blood cell is able to transport oxygen because it has a pigment that binds with oxygen molecule. So when that binding takes place, then you now have oxygen in the red blood cell. So the red blood cells can move to different tissues and organs of the body, and you know what now, supply them with what? Oxygen. So that is the reason why the primary function, the only function of the red blood cell is that the red blood cells are known to transport oxygen to all tissues and organs of the body. Are we together? Now, still on the red blood cell, still on the red blood cells. Now, still on the red blood cells. Let's go. Now, in fetus, red blood cells are produced by the liver, but in adults, the red blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. So please, I will advise you to get your pen and paper, all right, your pen and book, okay, or your jotting notes. Please be jotting all these points down, all right. Jot all these things down, they are very, very important. So in fetus, red blood cells are produced by what? By the liver. So a child still in the womb, all right, still developing, hasn't been given birth to, alive. Now that child, the red blood cells that are being formed are produced by the liver of that child. But in adults, all right, okay, or a baby that has come to life, or as adults, as we continue to grow, the baby continues to develop and grow. So the production of red blood cell is now taken to the bone marrow. So the bone marrow is now known to produce red blood cells. Remember, through what process? The process of what? Erythropoiesis. Okay, so red blood cells are produced through the process of erythropoiesis. Blood cells in general are produced through the process of hematopoiesis. So if it's red blood cells, we call it erythropoiesis. Okay, now let's go. So now, here's the thing. In fetus, the liver produces red blood cells, but in adults, remember, in adults, the bone marrow produces what? Red blood cells. Therefore, the breakdown of red blood cells in adults, the destruction of red blood cells in adults, it is carried out in the liver. All right. So now let's go. Breakdown of red blood cells okay in adults is carried out in the liver. You can also see it as liver and spleen. Okay, so in fetus, the liver produces red blood cells, but in adults, the liver breaks down red blood cells. So the liver breaks down red blood cells in adults. Sometimes you can see it collaboration, liver and spleen, or you see it as liver spleen. But please, I want you to know that the primary organ for the destruction of red blood cells, especially red blood cells that are old or non-functioning. Alright, remember I said that red blood cells have a lifespan of 120 days. So after 120 days, they become what? Non-functioning. So they will need to be destroyed and to be terminated and removed from the body. So the liver is the primary organ for the destruction of red blood cells. The liver is the primary organ for the breakdown of red blood cells. Okay, it is the primary organ. Please don't forget it. All right. Now, lastly, the products from the breakdown of red blood cells are bilirubin and ferritin. So please take note. The end products of red blood cell breakdown, I repeat, the end product of red blood cell breakdown, it is bilirubin and ferritin. The end product of red blood cell breakdown is bilirubin and ferritin. So bilirubin and ferritin, they are the end products of red blood cell breakdown. Alright, bilirubin and ferritin. Now please, again, very important, bilirubin is excreted from the body, or you say from the blood, all right, through the bile. Bilirubin is excreted from the blood. All right, so after bilirubin has been formed in the liver, in order to remove that bilirubin, which is harmful, all right, if it remains in the blood, in order to remove it, what happens is that the bile will not do the work. Remember, the bile is a greenish fluid, all right, a greenish liquid. The bile is a greenish liquid and it is alkaline in nature, all right, it has a very high pH. So the bile is a greenish liquid produced in the liver and stored in the gallbladder. So the bile is the liquid, all right, produced in the liver that helps to excrete bilirubin from the body. All right, so a situation whereby the bile duct is blocked and bilirubin begins to accumulate along the blood vessels, all right, it now results in a disease condition known as jaundice. Okay, it results in a disease condition known as what? Jaundice. Somebody will be having yellow skin and yellow eyes. All right, so that's a disease condition called jaundice. Now, the yellow color of the skin and the eyes is now as a result of accumulation of bilirubin. Okay, now bilirubin is a yellow greenish substance. Okay, it's a yellow greenish substance, and bilirubin is responsible It is responsible for the color of feces. Alright? The color of feces. Alright? What is responsible for the color of your stool is what? Bilirubin. Alright? A person that goes to defecate very dark stool, that is telling you that there is excessive breakdown of red blood cells. So you now have accumulations of bilirubin, high amount of bilirubin present in feces. That's what gives it that dark color. Then the normal yellow greenish color is still as a result of what? Bilirubin. So bilirubin gives feces the characteristic color. Alright, so this is all for the red blood cells.